Hello, this is Coach DK coming at you with Coffee Cup Games, and in this series, we're going to be doing some Strat-O-Matic. Hey, this is Coach DK. We are continuing our series on the year 1900 as we do a replay. We just finished the month of July, so this is a July and full season recap of where we are right now. In the American League, you see the Chicago Invaders are leading the league with a 71-49 record. They have a very slim lead over the Cleveland Babes, who are only 3.5 games out. The Indianapolis Hoosiers, who are 4.5 games out. Both Cleveland and Indianapolis are really trying to vie for that top spot. But not to be left behind is the Detroit Wolverines, who are 62-55. They are really close to both Cleveland and Indianapolis and not that far behind Chicago. The Milwaukee Creams still have a winning record at 59-58. They are 10.5 games out, 3 games behind Detroit, but 3 games above Kansas City, who is in 6th place. Buffalo is 5 games behind Kansas City. So from Buffalo all the way, I would say, and Kansas City are trying to vie for a spot. It seems like everybody's vying for a spot right above them, except for Minneapolis. The Millers are 30 games out. They have the worst record in the league. They are definitely probably going to end up in the 8th seed. As mentioned earlier, we will always do a tournament of playoffs of the 8 teams from each league. So there will be 8 teams from the American League who will be battling it out, 8 teams from the National League. It happens to work out well in the sense that every team makes it when we are having a league of only 8 teams. But in the future, more current times, when we do a replay of one of those seasons, obviously there might be more teams. So maybe 8 teams will still be the number, but it will be out of 15 instead of maybe, obviously in this case, all 8. But in the National League, you see the Brooklyn Superbas have the best record in the major leagues. They are 2 games better than Chicago, the American League, but they have started to increase their lead again over the Boston Bean Eaters. It was down to about 4.5 the last time we did a broadcast, but Brooklyn has jumped up a little bit more. They have pretty much held on to that spot all year. Boston is in 2nd. They are 6.5 games out. They've been consistently around that 6 or 7 mark for a while now. They sometimes go a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit higher, but it seems like they've been right around that 6.5 mark. They are 65-52. St. Louis Cardinals are 53-64. They are 8.5 games out, only 2 games behind Boston. They are the 3rd and final team that has a winning record in the National League. The Chicago Orphans are, and the Pittsburgh Pirates, Philadelphia Phillies, and the New York Giants are all battling it out in the middle for that number 4 spot. So 4 through 7 is definitely up for grabs. How they're all going to play out, it's going to be exciting to see. There's only 2.5 games that separate the 4 teams. You'll notice that Pittsburgh, who's been pretty much lingering at the 7th spot for most of the season, has jumped up now to 5th place. The reason they're able to do that is if you look down a little bit further, you will see that in the month of July, they have the best record in the Major League with 20 wins and 10 losses. So definitely making a play, a move to advance up. Ironically, the other team that had a 20-10 record, who hit 20 wins in the month, is the Kansas City Blues, who are in 6th place. Which is interesting about Kansas City is that they won 20 games in April and 20 games in July. In April, it was the 2nd best record. In July, they're tied for 1st. So you would think they would have a better record, but they had by far the worst record in both May and June, winning only 9 and 7 games. So Kansas City has been a team of streaks, having a real good April, having a real good July, but having a dreadful May and June. And so they're hoping to continue with the 20-10 streak versus the 7-20 streak. So it'll be interesting to see how Kansas City ends the season. When we look at the run totals, you'll see that the team who has the best winning difference or run difference is the Indianapolis Hoosiers at 118 runs. I found that kind of surprising considering the fact that they're in third place in the American League. You would think that one of the first place teams would be there, either Chicago or Brooklyn or maybe Cleveland and Boston. But no, it is the third place Indianapolis Hoosiers. So obviously they win big, and as you can tell, they lose little. They have lost when they are in one-run games. They are 11-20, which is the worst record in the majors. Cincinnati Red Stockings are pretty darn close, but they really struggle in close games, which is obviously affecting how they're doing. But that's pretty much everything on the standings sheet. Let's go to league leaders. We'll see some familiar names that we know, but we'll also see some familiar names that will be splashing all over the page. One of them is the man who's leading the league in batting average is Elmer Frisk. He is hitting .395, so the Hall of Famer excuse me, leads the league with a .395 average. Right behind him is Honus Wagner from Pittsburgh. Jesse Burkett is hitting .375. Nap Lajoie is hitting .369. And Jake Beckley is hitting .368. Those are the top 5 guys in the league. All of them are Hall of Famers. And so see if Elmer Frisk can get to that 400 range. He's the only one that I'm really seeing has the best shot. Wagner could, but I really don't see Burkett from a .375 being able to jump up to 400. It is possible, but Elmer Frisk might be pushing that 400 mark, and we'll have to see what happens. Runs scored. We have 4 players with over 100 runs. We have Jesse Burkett with 106. Elmer Frisk is 1 behind him at 105. Hemphill from Kansas City is 102, and Ollie Pickering from Cleveland is at 100. So 4 guys with 100. 2 Chicago Orphans hitters are leading the league in doubles. Green and Ryan both are at 42. Pittsburgh's Honus Wagner is at 20 triples, the only player with 20 triples. We have 4 guys who have over 10 home runs. Elmer Frisk, who leads the league in average, has 14 home runs. 14 home runs. For a dead ball era, that's incredible. He's having a good season, obviously at the plate, not just getting on base, but also with his power. Chicago Invaders, Schugert is at 12. He's tied with Mike Donlin for St. Louis, who, when we did his broadcast, he was on a hot streak. He had hit 5 home runs in the last 10 games, obviously increasing his number, getting up to that number 2 spot with 12 home runs. Sullivan rounds out the group. Boston's power hitter, he has 11. You will notice that there are 3 Boston players who are in the pack. Long and Freeman are also in that top group. Sox Seabold is 5th. We saw him hit his 9th home run the last time we did a broadcast. Runs batted in, Burkett and Flick are the 2 top guys with 96 and 95. Dungan from Kansas City has 89 and Honus Wagner has 85. Those are the ones that are standing out there. When it comes to stolen bases, we can see that Ollie Pickering continues to lead with 58 stolen base. Anderson is at 56. I was curious if anyone would be able to push the 100 mark. It doesn't look like anyone will. But Pickering and Anderson are the 2 guys above 50. Hitting streak, George Van Haltren had gotten up to 25 during the month of July. New York Giant hitter took over the hottest hitting streak of the season over Ollie Pickering, who earlier in the season had 24. Dungan from Kansas City has the current longest hitting streak at 18. Elmer Frisk leads both slugging percentage and on-base percentage, both with a comfortable lead, particularly the slugging percentage, as he is the only player above 600. And is the only player above 450 with the on-base percentage. Going down to the pitching now, we will see that Cy Young is the only pitcher with over 20 wins. We were did a broadcast where he collected his 20th win. He has 21 for the season. Patterson has 18. Cronin has 17. Gear has 17. And McGinnity, the Hall of Famer from Brooklyn, has 17. Losses, unfortunately, Scott from Cincinnati leads that dreadful list, one that you do not want to be leading. But it is Scott who has 18 losses. In the EAR, we continue to see the Chicago Invaders with their pitchers scattered throughout. Jack Cotole, who has led the league pretty much all season, is at 1.31. And the closest one behind him is his teammate Denzer, who is at 1.53. But there is also their teammate Patterson, who's at 1.96. So 3 of the 6 pitchers who are under 2.0 are all from Chicago, the American League Invaders. Fisher makes the list as well as we look at the top 12. He's at 2.41, so 4 guys on the list. The other guys who are on the list that are under 2 is Gardner from Indianapolis, and then teammates Rube Waddell and Bill Reedy from Milwaukee, who are at 1.91 and 1.93 respectfully. The most complete games is Pink Hawley from New York. He has 15 complete games. Deenan from Boston has 14. Hawley has been leading, for the most part, complete games. But where we see a change is in saves. Howe has been leading the league all season, and he is currently still in the lead, but he is tied now with 9 saves with Gardner, who you may recall has the 3rd best ERA. Gardner has a .818, so he has 9 saves and 11 opportunities. So Gardner, when he has a chance to make the save, has been doing it well. For shutouts, Cotole has 4, Gear has 4, and Deneen has 4, along with Pink Hawley with 4. So 4 guys with 4 shutouts. The other one that we like to look at is strikeouts. Cy Young has 88 strikeout. Noodles Hahn has 83. Ned Garvin has 77, and Jack Cotole has 76. Those are the guys that are above 75 that have the best shot to break 100 strikeouts. Wasn't sure if we were going to have anybody, but 100 strikeouts during this dead ball era of the year 1900 is an impressive feat. So we'll see how any of them do. Getting away now from the league leaders, let's look at the team totals and where they rank. You will see that Brooklyn has a 300 average, leading the league in hitting. There's a reason they have the best record in the league. They are 9th in earned run average at 3.79, but Brooklyn is showing why they lead the league with a 300 team average. They're doing incredible. Minneapolis, the worst team in the majors, has, as expected, the worst hitting at 263. The Chicago Invaders of the American League, surprisingly, are very weak at hitting. They are the 4th worst team at hitting 274, but they have an astronomically amazing ERA with a 2.36, which is exactly half of the worst team, the New York Giants, at 4.72. So Chicago, you can see, has a humongous ERA lead over Milwaukee, and Milwaukee and Indianapolis are actually pretty well set apart from the rest of the pack, except for Cleveland. Milwaukee and Indianapolis have great ERAs at 3.01, 3.05. Doing incredible. Chicago, as I mentioned, has an incredible ERA. They're also holding their opponents to a 240 batting average, which is absolutely incredible. Indianapolis, who is the worst, the worst hitting team, is the second worst. It has the second worst ERA, but they have also allowed their opponents to hit 304. They are one of 2 teams to allow their opponents to hit over 300. Ironically, the worst is the Philadelphia Phillies, who are the league leaders, allowing their opponents to hit 300, 306. The best hitting, the best power team appears to be Boston, who has, as a team, hit 43 home runs. Behind them is St. Louis, who has 35. Cincinnati has 32. So 3 teams with over 30 home runs. Detroit, nope, I take that back. Indianapolis and Chicago Orphans have 25. So moving forward, let's go down to the injury report. Some big injuries that may really affect the final standings. You can see the Cleveland Babes, who have had a lot of injuries, currently have nobody injured. That is good for Cleveland, as they are now at full strength. But unfortunately, for the Milwaukee Creams, they have lost their best pitcher for the remainder of the year. Rube Waddell is going to miss the rest of the season. A huge loss for Milwaukee. One that's going to be really hard. Another big loss for another team is Cincinnati Red Stockings. They lost their Hall of Famer, Sam Crawford. But Cincinnati obviously has had some big injuries this year. 195 games, and you can see there's 3 guys that are out, and so they've just been hit with the injury bug. But the big injury story of the season may be Milwaukee Creams losing Rube Waddell for 55 games the remainder of the season. That is going to be hard to overcome. Obviously, that's going to seriously affect them, getting down in the crunch time. We are entering the months of June, the dog day of summer, and so this is when the playoff picture really becomes solidified. Teams really try to make their final push for the playoffs, and it'll be interesting to see what happens as Milwaukee, who's kind of like in that middle of the pack, trying to get into those top spots, really is going to take a huge hit. So probably the biggest story of July right now. Let's go down to awards. As expected, Elmer Frisk is leading the MVP charge. He is the league leader in team average in batting average and in home runs. No surprise there. Jesse Burkett is second. He's also at the top in many of those same categories. Jack Cattol has a slight edge over Cy Young. Jack Cattol is the league leader in ERA. Cy Young is the league leader in wins and strikeouts. So either one of them is understandable. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We're going to go ahead and look at the American League and who are the potential all-stars. We have Powers of Indianapolis for catcher, Worden for first base, Magoon for second base, Hartman at third, Shugart for short, Copsey Hartzell for left, Pickering in center, and Hemphill in right. The top 3 pitchers are Jack Cattol, Patterson, Jack Cattol's teammate, and Rube Waddell, who is currently injured. So it'll be interesting to see. We will do a all-star game at the end of the season. How we do it might be a little bit different, but you can look forward to that. In the National League, which are going to be obviously more names that you're more familiar with, we have Chief Zimmer, the catcher for Pittsburgh, leading the charge. Jake Beckley, the Hall of Famer, is currently the first choice over another Hall of Famer, Ed Delahunty. Nap Lajoie is currently the second baseman. Jimmy Collins, Hall of Famer, is actually second to New York's Hickman. They're in one of the closest races out there. Bill Dolan is the league's best shortstop right now. Jesse Burkett from St. Louis, Jimmy Barrett, and Elmer Frisk all lead the outfield. The guy that is left out is Honus Wagner, just simply because he is playing the same position as Elmer Frisk. The top 3 pitchers are Cy Young, Deacon Philippe, and Ned Garvin. Surprising Outworth's not there. Noodles Hahn all should be able to make a good run. But Deacon Philippe, who we have not seen this entire year pitch a game, is in the number 2 spot as rated as the best pitcher. The record book will be the last thing we're going to cover. And so looking at some of the records that we have so far this year, the longest game is still 13. We have 5 teams that have achieved that. No game has gone past that. We did have two of those games in the month of July. The most runs by one team, New York Giants, scored 27 runs. I find it interesting that New York, Minneapolis, who are two of the weaker teams, lead the league in have the highest total of runs scored in one game. They did it in a game where Philadelphia made 11 errors, but New York did have 27 hits. So you want to talk about a line there, 27-13. They scored 40 runs, which obviously became significantly huge. New first place, took the first place spot for most runs in a game by two teams. But look at that stat line: 27 runs for New York on 27 hits, committed 6 errors. Philadelphia scored 13 runs and lost by 14. They had 18 hits and committed 11 errors. Hard to believe you have 13 runs scored and committed and had 18 hits and you lose. It's also hard to believe that you committed 6 errors and win. So what a game that must have been. One of those games I probably would have enjoyed watching. Not sure if I would have enjoyed being the manager of either team. The most hits in the game, we have 3 guys who've gotten 6 hits. We got Halligan from Buffalo, we got Davis from Minneapolis, and Jesse Burkett from St. Louis. All had 6 hits in a game. None of them happened in July. The most strikeouts in a game so far is 4. That is Beaumont struck out 4 times in a game. One of those, again, records you don't want to be part of. We do have now, it looks like 9 guys who have had multiple home run games. We had 5 of them in July. Collins did it against Brooklyn. Donellan did it against Chicago. Flick did it against New York. McGann did it against Pittsburgh. And Breitenstein, the pitcher, did it against Boston. So Teddy Breitenstein is a pitcher. He got 2 at-bats and he had 2 home runs. That must have been extremely frustrating for Boston. Hard to believe. Moving down, one of the things that we always like to look is least hits allowed. I always like to see if there's any no-hitters. There are not. There were 2 one-hit games. Miller for Detroit, 1 hit the Cleveland Babes, and Taylor from Chicago Orphans, 1 hit the New York Giants. So that's pretty much everything that we're going to cover for today. That's where we're sitting at the end of July. We're getting ready, as I mentioned earlier, going to the dog days of summer to go into the real playoff push to see when things really start to heat up, not only in the weather but in the playoff picture. We get into the fun times of the season. This is always my favorite part. And so until next time, this is Coach DK. Hope you guys have a good one. Until next time, bye.